We have almost 500 oral histories, and each year we add to our collection. I think of these oral histories as a window to our past, the present, and Washington's future.
That's Lisa Kranzler, Executive Director of the Washington State Jewish Historical Society, discussing the Washington State Jewish Archives, the foremost collection of Jewish oral histories in the state of Washington, which is housed at the University of Washington. I'm Jeff Schwager, and today we'll be talking about those oral histories, how they came together, and all the amazing stories they contain. First and foremost, let's talk about the story of one of the women who founded this amazing project, Meta Buttnick.
So when I came to Seattle in '39, Bichur Cholam was already talking about celebrating its 50th anniversary. Bichur Cholam was actually started as the Chevra Bichur Cholam in 1889. But it was incorporated as a congregation in 1891. So I said, are they going to write in connection with it? Well, he says they're planning a dinner. I says, are they going to are they going to write a history? Are they going to have a book that will accompany the dinner? I said, why can't I do the same in Seattle as I did in Fairbanks and work on oral histories first, and then of course do the research in the minutes of Bichur Cholam, and I did.
Meta's work proved essential when, in the 1960s, the Archives and Manuscripts Division of the Libraries of the University of Washington invited 4 Seattle area ethnic communities, Jewish, Japanese, Scandinavian, and African Americans, to build their archives at the libraries. This led to the creation of the Washington State Jewish Archives, which continues to grow with collections of records, manuscripts, photos, and oral histories. This wonderful resource is a collaboration of the Washington State Jewish Historical Society and the University of Washington Special Collections.
In 2020, the Historical Society is culling the wonderful stories found in our oral history collection to launch the program Shema, Hear, O Washington, which will bring the voices of our past to life and offer our entire community access to these priceless treasures from our history. We will be unlocking these beautiful voices and then beginning to gather materials to curate digital exhibits and hear stories about these individuals and the organizations and businesses they founded.
To find out more about the archive, we had one of the WSJHS digital curators, Clarissa Marks, talk to archivist and collection strategy manager Ryan Donaldson about the work he does and what he's learned since taking over the project last year.
I grew up in the Seattle area. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian. And growing up, there was some familiarity of the larger Jewish community. So I realized it was a long history, but I didn't realize actually how far back the history went. Once I started with the Washington State Jewish Historical Society, I realized in looking at the records and listening to some of the oral history interviews that the history goes back to the mid-19th century when this area was still a territory. And then in 1875, Bailey Gatzert, who had opened a grocery and hardware store in downtown Seattle, and he also became in 1875 the city's 6th mayor and the first and currently sole Jewish mayor as well. And so for me, it came full circle because in high school, I was a volunteer tutor at Bailey Gatzert and didn't really realize or have a full appreciation for the history.
What are some of the things that you're looking for right now?
So right now, one thing that we're very interested in is materials from the Sephardic community. One of the things that is very interesting about Washington State is that when you look at the Jewish population, there are estimates of anywhere from 1% to 2 or even 3% of the population. However, of that percentage, there is a very large representation of the Sephardic community represented here. And that's something that's, my understanding is quite unique. And one thing that's been said is that the percentage is actually higher here in Washington State than pretty much any other community in the United States. We have a really great collection already represented, but as we look to the future, that's something that we're very interested in furthering.
For Ryan, what makes his job so special is the collaboration between the Washington State Jewish Archives and the University of Washington.
The voices we have in this collection are true gems. It's such a joyful job listening to these bits of history because you can actually hear about Seattle and our state's Jewish history being formed. But even more than this, you can hear about some of our institutions. You can hear the stories and voices of the people who immigrated to Washington in the late 1800s and established businesses that are still around today, like Benbridge Jewelers, and others that are still very much remembered, as well as the voices of people who founded and helped to found organizations like the Seattle Symphony and Costco, as well as Supersonics and the Seahawks.
One of the voices in the collection is that of Zolly Volchuk, who arrived in Seattle in 1946 and managed the John Dan's Theaters. Eventually, he became president of Northwest Releasing and played a big part in the Seattle World's Fair, where he was responsible for much of the entertainment that was presented during that landmark event.
We would call in to book pop entertainment mainly perhaps a year before the fair started, because most attractions you have to book a year or two in advance to tie up dates. We wanted some top stuff for the World's Fair, the Opera House, the Arena, the Coliseum. We used every building we could probably get. It was very successful, and our part of it was very successful, yes.
Okay.
A lot of work, a lot of interest, and a lot of rewards financially.
Zolly was also an integral part of the team that led the Seattle Supersonics from their earliest days through their championship run in 1979. In 1983, his final year with the team, he won the award for NBA Executive of the Year.
Sam Schulman, he started the Seattle Supersonics here. He got me on the phone. He says he'd like to have me take over the operation of the Seattle Supersonics, and just to supervise everything. And I don't know anything about basketball, and his famous quote was, nor do my players. And I was to be vice president of the Seattle Supersonics and general manager. Later I became president, and I stayed with that company. I said, well, let's try it for a couple of years. And I stayed with the company for 15 years. During that time, we won the world championship.
Another major sports figure in our state was Herman Sarkowsky. He was the founder of United Homes Corporation, the largest home building company in the Northwest. He became one of the owners of the Portland Trailblazers before moving north to help lead the Seattle Seahawks.
I was the managing partner for the first 6 years, and then I became involved with the Seattle Seahawks. Up here, I was really responsible for putting that group together. Ned Skinner and I formed the group, and we were successful in getting the franchise for Seattle. And today, Paul Allen, as you know, also owns the Seahawks. Right. So, in a way, I'm responsible for his ownership at professional sports.
Then there's Jeffrey Brotman, the co-founder and chairman of Costco, who grew up in Tacoma and credits his father with the original idea that became Costco.
So I was looking for another career, and my dad dragged me to a variety of different retailers, and he said, you can do this. You should come and see the Price Club, and you should go to Europe and see the hypermarkets. And so he really got me to get out and look around at what was going on in the world of retailing, because the retailing was beginning to change back in the early 80s. Well, I knew a lot about retailing. I knew nothing about distribution of efficient distribution of product, and I had no experience in the food and sundries business. So the business model was very rich in copying the Price Club. So I was completely out of my league, and I was going around the country interviewing people who had different skill sets, and I actually had hired a few people. So it was not only the merchandise categories, but the objective was to be much more efficient in distributing goods than everybody that was out there at the time.
My mother always wanted me to be a conductor. And she said that when she was pregnant with me, she dreamt numerous times that I was going to be a conductor.
That's Gerard Schwarz, the Seattle Symphony's music director and chief conductor from 1985 to 2011. He's one of the many voices you can hear in the Oral Histories collection. Here he is talking about the birth of Benaroya Hall.
From the beginning, from the days I came, everyone realized there was a need for another large hall in our community. The ballet, opera, and symphony by now were all playing in the same hall. Now remember, the Opera House was built in 1962 for the symphony. There was no ballet and there was no opera. It was ours. It wasn't an issue. We always rehearsed on the stage. It was built for us. We founded the opera, but with the performance of Aida, and the opera founded the ballet. And then all of a sudden, here we are in the mid-'80s, late 80s, we're all playing in the same hall, using the same orchestra. The ballet, opera, and symphony were all the same, all under the banner of the symphony in terms of the musical performance. But we were all expanding, we were all successful, and there was little time. We couldn't rehearse on the stage anymore. We had to rehearse in a very inferior rehearsal room. Among our close friends in the community were our family friends were Sam and Gladys Rubenstein. And we got to know so many people through them, especially Jack and Becky Benaroya, who I just fell in love with. Jack, one day when I was on a Sunday morning at a brunch at his house, I think honoring the engagement of his second niece, I think, said that he had a problem they'd like to discuss with me, and could I have lunch with him the next day. That was on a Sunday. On Monday I met him at the Rainier Club, and basically he said, I remember very well, he was never one to beat around the bush. Before we even ordered, he just got it out on the table. He wanted to give $10 or $15 million to the Symphony to build a hall. What did I think?
That was in 1995. In 1998, Benaroya Hall opened in downtown Seattle as the new home of the Seattle Symphony. It's stories like these that are exclusive to the Washington State Jewish Archives Oral History Project. Once again, here's Lisa Kranzler.
This is the history of our entire state, not just Jewish Washington. We have collected voices from various communities around the state. We will be unlocking these voices during 2020, and we need the help of the whole community. This is just a start, the launching pad for unlocking the voices of the next several years. See more information about how you can help on the Washington State Jewish Historical Society website at WSJHS.org, and come celebrate with us at our special Shema, Hear, O Washington celebration fundraiser on Sunday, September 13th, 2020. Be there, support history, and if you think or want to check if you have a relative with a voice in our oral history collection, then contact us at info@WSJHS.org. or call the office at 206-774-2277. We are working on getting as many of the current family members and friends of these voices connected. We want to make these visible and utilize our Washington Jewish Museum, the state's only Jewish history museum, an online digital museum, to curate these oral histories into stories with coordinated photos and other memorabilia. Let's unlock our voices together.